This is the Unspoken Podcast on the Undetermined Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Unspoken Podcast, part of the Undetermined Podcast Network. It is episode number 14, I believe it is now.
Yes, it is.
14 episodes. Oh, my God. I'm Tom Albano. Along with me is Nick Federa. And we have a big weekend this weekend when it comes to sports.
Holy shit, I hope you didn't have plans because they're going to be taken up by sports, and more sports.
And even if it's not sports, it's definitely entertainment. I, of course, am referring to sports entertainment. But that's going to be a thing for later.
Yeah, get it. Get your WWE plugs in there. I know. We all know.
But that's all right, Nick, because we're going to end the show with a double hot take. I think this is the first time ever on the Unspoken Podcast. Double hot take. We each have a hot take on the same topic for the same reason.
Simultaneous hot takes. It's a first, and it's definitely, depending how this is going, it's definitely not going to be the last.
I don't think it will be the last.
But the first order of business, tomorrow starts the Final Four. That's right, we're in the final leg of the college basketball playoff season, and well, I wish I could give you a prediction about who is going to win, but since I've been catastrophically wrong every single time I've tried to make a prediction, I am going to take the ball and punt it. I am not going to make any prediction of any kind.
Wow.
I can give informed opinions, but I will basically be the grayest man in Switzerland. Neutral. Completely neutral.
Wow. That is not like you at all. That is not like you at all to go on and, to go Switzerland.
I am tired of being wrong. I'm tired of being wrong and eating my words. Look, I've eaten so much crow over the past 14 episodes. I swear to God, it's like I've been sprouting feathers out of my ass.
Nick, to be fair, though, most of the United States was wrong.
Yes, that's true, but I also do not want to be a part of that. I'd like to at least, if I can't be right, I'd rather not have an opinion.
To be part of the wrong or to be part of the United States?
Well, I'd like to be part of the wrong. So, you have to understand. You can't tell me that anybody alive that has made brackets and has been following the tournament with any kind of regularity from the time it started up until now has absolutely expected what is going to happen or the way the tournament has actually shaken out.
No, not at all. I mean, I have the brackets in front of me. Let's see. I don't think anybody really predicted number 11, Xavier, beating Arizona. I don't think in the Sweet 16. I don't think anybody predicted that. It's safe to say I think very few people had USC coming from the first four and ending up beating SMU and then nearly beating Baylor in the second round.
Could be.
I don't think anybody predicted. Actually, consider Xavier had two upsets. They beat Florida State and then they beat Arizona. Then they got killed by Gonzaga, but that's to be expected when a team like Xavier is playing them.
Yeah.
I didn't put Gonzaga in my Final Four because they're also a team that's notorious for choking. But of course, I picked Villanova, and now for 2 out of 3 years straight, they're eliminated in the round of 32.
See, that's the exact kind of pro eating that I'd like to avoid.
Fair enough. I mean, I'm at least happy because I did predict quite a few upsets. I predicted Wichita State over Dayton. I predicted, let's see here. I predicted Rhode Island over Creighton. I predicted, Did I predict? I thought I predicted Xavier to go in the first, to, move on from the first round. I didn't think they'd get past the second.
We'll see.
But yeah, we have our Final Four. And our Final Four, we have only one number 1 seed, which I kind of expected there would only be one number 1 seed. I just thought it would be Villanova, not Gonzaga. Correction. Two number 1 seeds. Gonzaga and North Carolina. I forgot, because for those of you who haven't been keeping up with our bracket stuff, as a result of Kansas's elimination in the Elite Eight and North Carolina's win, Nick Morgeson is the only one with a Final Four team. Therefore, he is the winner of the Undetermined bracket contest.
Of course, the founder is the winner.
The founder is the winner, and his champion is still in it. His champion could go on to actually win the championship. North Carolina.
You know, that might actually give him bragging rights over the rest of us for the next, 5 million years.
Probably. I believe he has Gonzaga too. But I think he had Gonzaga going down to Villanova in the semis, if my memory serves me correctly.
Although I am not making a decision, I still can ask what other people think. So therefore, who do you think is going to come out on top?
Who do I think is going to come out on top? Well, let me make sure I got Nick's thing correctly. I don't want to botch, the winner of our bracket tournament. Yeah, he had Gonzaga losing to Villanova in the semis. He had North Carolina beating Purdue. That's the one thing I don't get. I don't get why he thought Purdue would be, Purdue would. Who did he have Purdue going over? He had Purdue going over. Louisville. I don't understand how. He would have predicted that. Of course, I didn't see Kansas and Purdue in the Sweet 16 where Kansas won. That I saw coming. Of course, Louisville ended up being one of my Final Four picks too, and they also were eliminated in the round of 32. So basically, I have crap.
Crap.
I have a Buffalo wrap next to me, but but of course figuratively I have crap. But anyways, back to the prediction. I think North Carolina and Oregon is going to be a great game. North Carolina, let's see, they beat Kentucky 75-73. Oregon beat Kansas 74-60. Let's see. South Regional All-Tournament team. I'm going to go by, I'm going to look at the players now. Of course, you have Luke May, the most outstanding player. And, he has had a career, he has had a tournament to remember, essentially. And he's one of the younger players.
And he still showed up to class the next morning. Which
yeah, you saw that?
Coming from grad students here, coming from people who both spent time, both dorm.
Spent a lot of time in the classroom.
Yeah, this is superhuman that he did this. I can't imagine. See, I've done my fair share of procrastinating. Waking up during my undergrad years, looking up at the clock and going, you know what? I am not going to class today, and just pull the blanket over my head and just basically put myself in a cocoon like a bug. The fact that he came to an 8 a.m. class the next day.
A lecture. Even worse, a lecture.
8 a.m. lecture, nonetheless. That man deserves. I don't know whether to shake.
I salute him.
Yeah,
I salute him.
I don't know whether to salute him, shake his hand, or worship the ground he walks on, because that is. I don't understand it.
Anyways, so Luke May, a sophomore from North Carolina, and two juniors from North Carolina, Joel Berry II and Justin Jackson, won spots in the South Regional All-Tournament team, joining two young Kentucky players. Then you have Oregon, and they also have three regional All-Tournament teams. They were in the Midwest, of course. Of course, this is junior Jordan Bell, junior Dylan Brooks, and sophomore Tyler Dorsey. This is kind of a hard pick, only because I'm not the biggest college basketball fan, trying to consider the players at hand. I'm going to say North Carolina is going to go over Oregon. I think...
And you're secure in that?
I am going to predict that. And I mean, South Carolina and its little miracle run. So let's take a look at South Carolina and Gonzaga now. South Carolina, it's a little miracle run. I cannot believe the regional final, the Elite Eight, coming out of the East region, the same teams that were playing out of Madison Square Garden. Actually, let me give you one better. The Sweet 16 had a 3 seed, a 4 seed, which is normal, a 7 seed, and an 8 seed. And then the final was a 7 seed and a 4 seed, and the 7 seed won. That's unbelievable.
Hence why I'm not making any predictions.
But the all regional team, you have 2 South Carolina players. You have sophomore PJ Dozier, my bad, and Sindarius Thornwell, a senior from South Carolina, who was the most outstanding player in the region. In the final game against the Gators, Thornwell had 26 points. Yeah, Thornwell had 26 points. What's his name? Chris Silva had 9, and Notice had 9 rebounds, and Notice had 3 assists. Gonzaga, they're on the West Regional All-Tournament team. They had 3 players. The most outstanding player, Jonathan Williams, along with Jordan Matthews and Nigel Williams Goss against Xavier had a hell of a game. He had 23 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. South Carolina, here's what I'm going to say. You had a great little miracle run, similar to how Syracuse had last year, but I think it ends in the Final Four. I'm predicting Gonzaga, North Carolina will be the championship game.
Okay. All right. Well, by the time we reconvene for the next episode, we will have a national champion.
We will, and we will review that. Oh, I guess I have to pick a national champion too, don't I?
Yes. You really want to let you get away with that?
Oh boy, this one might be tough. But you know what? I have my opinion about Gonzaga, and me being a huge MJ fan, a little biased there, but I have the strangest feeling Nick Morganson would be the only one to get at least one team, and he'll have 2 teams, right? His 2 teams that end up going to Final Four will go to the championship game. Nick will have the ultimate bragging rights because I am predicting North Carolina will be the national champion.
Okay, I guess we'll see what happens.
Nick Morganson is going to have, you're right, as you said, we'll probably have bragging rights over us for the next 5 million years.
Could do. We'll see.
You're listening to the Unspoken Podcast part of the Undetermined Podcast Network. Nick, it's opening day weekend at long
That's right. Praise the Lord. Baseball is finally upon us. And yes, indeedy, the Yankees are starting on Sunday with a 6-game road trip. They're starting off a 3-game set at the Trop against the Rays.
In fact, that's going to be the very first game of the season. 1:00 ESPN and your regional sports networks if you're in New York or Florida.
And it's going to be a barn burner, folks. Of course, I hate series against the Rays.
I like their stadium though.
Their stadium, they don't. I went over this in a previous episode, but they don't deserve a team because the fans don't actually come out to see them.
Yeah, but I mean, there are some underrated stadiums. I think Tropicana, as much as you talked about before, I still think it's a little underrated stadium. Kansas City, I mean, my God, has the beautiful water fountain.
Well, yeah, that's another thing to be jealous of them for. But once they finish up the 3-game set with the Rays, they will skedaddle on over to Camden Yards for a quick 3-game set against the Orioles, and then
they're home against the Rays.
The next week is the home opener against, you guessed it, the Rays. And then we will have a early interleague matchup against the Cardinals, which is weird because
that's going to be really unique, though. I want to see a Yankees-Cardinals series. That's going to be interesting. Also, that should be a topic for another episode. We should do stadiums. Ones you love, ones you think are underrated, ones you hate.
Well, I've only ever been to one in my life, so I can't really judge.
I've only been to a few, but I mean, just based off what you hear and what you see, I guess. But anyways, to the point.
So the Yankees,
it is opening day weekend.
The Yankees have pretty much set up their roster. Aaron Judge is now your starting right fielder. Greg Bird is your first baseman, and at short, filling in for Didi, we have Ronnie Torreyes, and I think Tyler Wade is backing him up, or
I think you might be right on that one. But I'm interested in seeing what Torres has.
Aren't we all? I mean, the guy's basically a super utility guy, and he's a tiny little man, but he can fly, and that skill is always welcome.
Absolutely. It's going to be an interesting season for the Yankees. But let's take a step back and look at MLB as a whole. So, over the past few weeks, we've been doing our predictions. We've been going from division to division and trying to predict who will come out on top in each. And Nick, I think it's time for me to do some playoff predictions already.
Lay 'em on me.
Not so much in terms of, I'm gonna go through the, what our predictions were, and then I'm just gonna simulate what a playoff might look like. All right, so we started with the National League. Help me out here, Nick. So we started with the National League. Anyway, so we started with the East. We went to the West with the American League.
Yeah. We started with the AL West.
Yeah, so we started at the AL West. I'm just trying to find a nice page in my notebook here. All right, so we started with the NL East. And I believe our predictions were, well, we switched. We had the same three teams, but we essentially switched off. Because my predictions were the Nationals, the Mets, Braves, and then we had Phillies and Marlins in 4 and 5. That's not the point, I think. I had the Nationals win the East with the Mets and Braves getting the wild card, and you had the Mets winning the division with the Nats and the Braves getting the wild cards.
And I'm sticking to that.
And you're going to stick with that, okay. NL Central. I believe we had the Cubs winning by a long shot, we said.
Yeah, they were basically carrying the division.
Basically, I said they would slightly miss 100 games. They would be 98 or 99. You said they would slightly go over 100 games.
I think it was 101 or 102, I might have said.
But our average is 100 games.
Yeah.
Our average is 100 games. So based on average, we think the Cubs will end up being exactly a 100-game winner, which is a very well possibility.
Yes.
And then we go ahead going down. I think it was like the Cardinals were number 2. But they would miss out. The NL West, I believe we agreed the Dodgers.
Yeah, I think I can't remember if it was we said they were going to win the division by a lot or it was going to be close.
I want to say a little close, not a lot close, just a little close. And we said the Dodgers would just beat out the Giants to the West,
which usually ends up anyhow.
Right, but are you sticking with the prediction with the wild card? Are you saying the two teams who miss out?
I'm sticking with every prediction.
Okay. So there's some slight disagreements between the NL East winner and one of the first wild card recipients, but we have the same 5 teams for the NL. We have our Nets, the Braves, the Cubs, the Dodgers.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think will make for a hell of a playoff. Then we moved to the AL West. I think that we had the Astros first, right?
Yes, we did.
This was the prove us right pick.
Yes, it was.
Prove us right, Astros. And then, did we have the Rangers or Mariners second?
I had the Mariners third. I had the Rangers second.
That's right. We agreed on that. It was a tough one for us, but we agreed on that. And then we had the A's and Angels. AL Central.
We both took the Indians.
We did both pick the Indians. Was that by a long shot?
I think so.
Indians. And then who was second for us?
It might have been the.
I know the White Sox we said were the basement.
Yeah.
The White Sox were the basement dweller. Trying to think.
The Royals.
That's right. Well, we had the Twins in the fourth, I believe. The Twins and White Sox were the basement dwellers. The Royals, I think, were second. And then the Tigers third?
Yeah.
Or was it the other way around? I forget.
No, I think we had the Tigers third, I think.
Okay. And then the AL East, we both agreed the Red Sox. The second pick, the Orioles and Yankees, we had a little disagreement with. You said the Yankees would be ahead. I said I think they'll tie. Yeah, I'm just making a little notes in my book here. Actually, you know what's funny? 538 came out with their predictions of how many games Yankees and other teams were gonna win. Actually, you know what? How about I look that up first before we do anything?
Yeah, what do they say?
Oh, hit the microphone again. All right, let's see. Wrong browser. 538. MLB predictions 2017. All right, let's see. Yada yada. Come on. Oh, here it is, 2017. Okay. All right, so let's see. It has as the best team, according to 538, the Cubs will be the best team in Major League Baseball. It gives the Cubs a 98-64 record, 84% chance of making the playoffs, 70% chance of winning the NL Central, and a 14% chance of repeating as champions, marking the Cubs as the favorite.
I am inclined to agree with that, but seeing as how 538 has been catastrophically wrong in the most important business of predicting elections, I'm going to have to cast a little bit of aspersion on it, I must say.
Yes, but at the same time, well, we'll save it for my prediction. Anyways, there are two other teams that are ranked when it comes to possibility of winning the World Series. Two other teams are ranked higher than 10%. Both teams are at 11%. And those two teams are the Dodgers and the Indians.
11%? So low?
11. They give the Dodgers a 95-67 record, 77% chance of making the playoffs, 58% chance of winning the division, 11% chance of the World Series. The Indians, they give a 75% chance of making the playoffs, 63% chance to win the division, 11% chance to win the World Series, and a 94-68 record to be the best team in the American League.
So who do you think will be playing in the World Series at least?
Hang on, don't you want to know about our Yankees and our Mets?
All right, let's go there. All right.
Okay. Who do you want to know first, Yankees or Mets?
Let's go with the Mets. I need a good.
Okay. The Mets. The Mets, they are predicting they will have a 4% chance to win the World Series. They are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, ranked 9th out of 30 teams on this list.
Which is not too bad.
Right. not too bad. 30% chance to win the division, 51% chance to make the playoffs. They predict the Mets will finish 87-75.
Lower than I would have expected out of them, but okay.
Well, you're not going to like the Yankees.
Of course I'm not. I never do.
They give the Yankees a 2% chance to win the World Series. They give them a 14% chance to win the division, a 27% chance to make the playoffs. They are predicting in 2017, for the first time since, I believe, the early 1990s, the Yankees will finish under 500. They predict an 80-82 record for the Yankees.
Well, fuck that and fuck Nate Silver. They might not make the playoffs, but I think they'll at least finish above 500, for God's sake. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. If you want my honesty about why I was having trouble with the Orioles, the Yankees, and why I was tempted to put the Yankees third, here's why. I predict for the Yankees, it's going to be like last year. They're going to be out of it for a long time. Then September is going to roll around, and it's like maybe, just maybe, they might pull it off, and then they're going to break our hearts at the end.
Yeah, pretty much. Or they'll get into the wild card game and have an early exit. But progress.
Like I said, next it's not going to be this year. It's going to be next year.
Yeah, I need progress. I need substantial progress. If you're building a solid foundation and these kids can perform well, I'm going to be happy. In fact, I'm going to be singing a tune. So I can't really complain. It's even though I just told Nate Silver to go fuck himself, I take it back. I take it back.
Oh God.
What?
Nick and one of my friends are getting into it now on Facebook. They're having an arguing match.
Oh, great.
Oh God, I'm not stopping this to look at that. I can't anymore.
No.
Anyways,
Don't bother.
I'm not even gonna bother. Anyways, let's get into my predictions now. So, I have put up for the longest time putting wildcard teams, but I'm gonna make it. Since I was gonna predict the Yankees, I had the temptation to put them third. I'm going to give the Orioles a wildcard slot. And I'm also going to give a wild card slot to... I'm going to give it to the Rangers. I'm going to say the Rangers and Orioles will be the AL wild card teams. So that would set up... Well, also, and for best teams in the National League and best team in the American League, I think 538 will have it right. The Cubs and the Indians will be the best team. So that would set up for the wild card round. In the AL, the Rangers against the Orioles. And in the NL, that would set up Mets versus Braves. I would predict the Mets would win the wild card game for the NL. For the AL, that one would be close. But I think I would have to give it to the Orioles.
Yeah, that would right.
That would set up an ALDS between the Indians and Orioles and between the Astros and the Red Sox.
Ooh, that's a good one.
And I'm going to go Indians-Red Sox. They met in the ALDS last year, right?
Yeah.
So I think the ALCS will be a rematch of last year's.
We'll be Indians-Red Sox.
Indians versus the Red Sox. That one's tough. But I'm going to have the little Yankee vice in me help out, and I'm going to give I say the Indians will be back in the World Series.
As much as it infuriates me, and as much as you're
going to say the Red Sox.
As much as you can give me shit about it, and as much as I may eat crow 7 months from now when we're crowning a World Series champion, I have to say the Red Sox and the Cubs in the World Series.
That's my other possibility. I guess I just spoiled now who I have for the NL. I'm going to have the Cubs back in the World Series.
Future me may have to eat his words, but you know what? That's not present me's problem.
No, you're right. I think the Red Sox the Indians and Red Sox, one of them is going to be the AL representative. I think that's just obvious at this point, as of before the season starts.
Yeah, and we'll go back and we'll go back to it in October, and we'll see if we were right.
Right. I mean, this is also before any injuries happen, any streaks, any call-ups.
That's the magic of baseball.
Right. So the NLDS, that would set up. I had the Mets going over the Braves, so that would set up Mets, Cubs, and Dodgers, Nats. I have the Cubs going over the Mets. This one's gonna bother me, but since you put a team over, that you didn't like over, I'm gonna put a team that I really love under. I'm gonna say the Cubs and Dodgers will rematch. And the NLCS, once again, I have the Cubs winning. So I think for some reason we might have a rematch this year.
Yeah, could be. So if you missed anything last year, it'll happen again this year.
But now the big question. Now, I mean, this is because then this would be like the NBA Finals. The big question: do the Cubs actually repeat, unlike the Golden State Warriors? Or does once again Cleveland get its revenge?
Whew, that's a tough one. Well, I picked
that is a tough.
So I'm not gonna pick a champion. I'm just gonna.
I know, no, but if you were between the Red Sox and Cubs, who would you pick?
I would probably pick the Cubs to repeat. Just because I think they have a lot more star power on offense,
talent,
and
youthful talent, I should say.
Yeah, and the back end of Boston's rotation, we don't know what's gonna go on with
right, which actually plays into a little reason why I had the Indians going over
after Sale and Price, but I think they're good enough to get to the World Series.
And with that, Nick, I'm going to be in agreement with you. My early preseason 2017 prediction is the Cubs will repeat as World Series champions.
I'll have to say as well. Like I said, we may have to eat crow, but that's a problem for the future, not for the present.
And you never know. They could be winning two World Series in a row before not making it for another 108 years.
Wouldn't that be something?
I would be. So, you know what? Let's give them a World Series while they can. You're listening to the Unspoken Podcast, part of the Undetermined Podcast Network. Nick, Sunday also marks something special to my heart.
Wrestlemania, I take it.
Yes. So I'll be watching the Yankees in the afternoon and then Wrestlemania at night. It works. It works perfectly. And you know what? I think this WrestleMania is the truest definition of something I believe we talked about the last time. We talked about sports entertainment, the meaning of what's it called? The meaning
sports
of
entertainment. Sports does it have
time-honored tradition? Time-honored tradition.
Yeah, time-honored tradition.
When we talked about that, I think we mentioned WrestleMania, or at least some of wrestling in general, isn't for the hardcore fan anymore. At least WrestleMania.
Yeah, and I agreed with that.
Because, I mean, WrestleMania is a lot different than it used to be. I mean, the wrestling industry itself is a lot different than it used to be. I mean, if you want an example, just look at the stage for one thing. The earliest WrestleManias, obviously, it's just like the rest of wrestling, there was really no stage. It was just, either... sorry. Headset came out of me. It was just either just a normal setup, like a normal walkway, or it was a normal setup at the time. Then you started getting into the more elaborate stages. Now, the WrestleMania set this year, as it looked in construction, because this is the last I saw it, it's in Orlando this year, so the stage has a globe, like kind of like a parody of the Universal Globe, but it said WrestleMania on it, and a whole roller coaster in the background.
Wow. Well,
I
can't begrudge McMahon doing that because entertainment, right? He wants to put on a WrestlePalooza. It's the biggest party of the year. It's basically their Super Bowl, and you better go all out.
Right. I mean, it's practically, talking from somebody who watches the product religiously, it is now the only time ever that they actually changed the stage up. Other than that, if you were to watch a normal pay-per-view, it would be basically the same setup each time. Like, they would just use a Raw stage or SmackDown stage because of, like, they have, like, the HD stuff, so, like, easy to switch and everything.
But they gotta glitz it up.
Right, but for WrestleMania, you gotta glitz it up. You have to.
So what are you expecting out of it? Are you expecting just a good...
So, I predict a fine show. It's hard for me. Do you remember the days when Raw and SmackDown were two separate bands?
Yeah.
Okay, they started doing that again, by the way. They did that over the summer. I was always a Team Blue guy, I will admit. But even coming from a neutral perspective, here's what I'm saying. I like SmackDown's road to WrestleMania. Raw's WrestleMania hasn't been very exciting for me.
Oof. Huh.
But, of course, Raw is going to have all their matches on the main card. A couple of SmackDowns have been relegated to the pre-show. Because, of course.
So, but is it at least expected to be a good show? I mean,
I think it'll be a good show in terms of the talent. It's like, once again, with the casual fan versus the hardcore fan. I think it'll be good matches. Great matches, even. But the hardcore fan in me sees a couple of problems. You heard what the two, or at least what one of the big matches is, right? It's Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
A big rematch because, I don't know if you know, but from what they've been doing over the past few months is, like, they did it in November at Survivor Series where Goldberg won in, like, a minute and a half. And
which in his 50s is kind of stretching credulity, let's say.
Exactly. Like, I think that's the problem with the hardcore fan to me. It's like, sometimes McMahon's like, oh, we got to move on to the more modern product and stuff. And you're using 50-year-olds as your freaking champions.
Yeah, and Goldberg was the shit when I was growing up. But you know.
Absolutely. And here's another big problem. Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar. You have one guy who's basically coming out of retirement versus a part-timer for a full-time, title. So my big prediction, and what seems to be the obvious, is Lesnar's going to win. So you're telling me Raw's not going to have a world champion for however long you're going to have the title on Lesnar for, because he only makes part-time appearances. That's not right. The champion should be there every week. That's just my honest opinion. That's the hardcore fan in me.
But the only thing that Vince McMahon wants you to care about
is the entertainment.
And it's not, right. Like you said, it's not really about the hardcore fan anymore. It's about putting asses in seats. It's the spectacle of it.
Right. I mean, and I like when the part-time guys come out of stuff. And that's unique, because if you ask any internet wrestling community person, they hate it. But I like it. I just, it was cool the first time around when The Rock did it and he held it for a couple of months. It was unique when Lesnar was there, but like I said, the last time Lesnar held the title, it was during his part-time status. He wasn't around, so it was like they needed to depend on the storylines a lot more for main events, which I think they did fine, mostly. But this is the third time now. It's like, okay, this is ridiculous. The part-timers should be there to boost WrestleMania and boost buys and stuff, not be the main event scene.
Yeah.
Also, you know what? The other part of me is, and you would probably understand this because you watched it in your heyday, Randy Orton won the Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble winner should be main eventing WrestleMania. That's the right as the Royal Rumble winner.
Well, that was the determining match.
Right. But of course, for some reason, and they've done this at past WrestleManias too, like back when the brand extension we've been talking about, they're guilty of that then. For some reason, the other championship match is the main event. It's like the hardcore fan to me is like, no, that's not how it should be. The Rumble winner gets the main event. That's been the tradition.
But you know what? McMahon...
Like, it goes back to the time-honored tradition. Tradition is not tradition in wrestling.
Yeah, the tradition is we don't have one. The tradition is we operate on the whims of what McMahon wants.
Right.
In fact, he is their tradition. The only thing that has remained constant is that man.
He is God, essentially.
Yeah, so you can't. So that really is the answer to the question that we asked months ago. The tradition.
What is the time-honored tradition? It's Vince McMahon.
Yes, it is Vince McMahon. He is, and he always has been. He won't always. He won't always will be. But I think his specter.
He is an asshole, but he is an intelligent asshole.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt his business acumen, but he is, yes, an asshole. Let's call a spade here.
I know, but I'm just saying. And then, as we all know, I mean, that's what we've been seeing on TV too. Once he goes, it'll be his daughter and his son-in-law running things.
Oh boy,
it's hard. I can't believe still that, like, if you asked me years ago, like the era you were talking about, how quickly Triple H would be in a suit and everything, running shit, I didn't think it'd be this soon.
Oh, hell no. I never would have guessed that, because I didn't think Triple H was actually capable of wearing a suit.
He doesn't even have a ponytail anymore, you know.
Oh, God, really?
He has buzzed short hair.
Oh, boy.
I gotta show you a picture.
Boy, that doesn't look weird at all.
The other WrestleMania, I mean, in terms of, to end on a good note on this topic, the WrestleMania match I'm looking forward to most, I don't want to say Undertaker versus Roman Reigns, only because there's a whole story behind that. I'm going to do a Tom CKO post where I'll talk about that. But on the Raw side, Kevin Owens versus Chris Jericho, the United States Championship match, which I feel should have been the Universal title match. On the Raw side of things, I mean, it's a case of, the classic case of best friends, tag team guys turned, it's like, oh, I just used you.
Yeah.
I mean, Chris Jericho, he can still go, by the way. Like, he always used to sign, like, short-term deals to, like, he'll appear and then he'll disappear for, like, a year or such. But then he came back last year and he's been there since. So it's like, you never know when he's going to leave, but it's like, this run has been amazing with Jericho, and Owens is a great heel. Like I said, I think what part of my, resistance to Goldberg, even though I'm a Goldberg mark, is I thought Owens had a terrific reign as champion. Maybe not the best, but I still, like, it wasn't about the belt. It was about him. He made the belt. And on the SmackDown side, the WWE title match, Orton and Bray Wyatt versus Randy Orton, because that feud has been what the fuckish.
What the fuckish? I got to use that in conversation.
Because it takes us back to the days of the Attitude Era and Ruthless Aggression Era. Like, they had Orton setting Wyatt's house on fire. They had Wyatt, like, dousing himself in, like, ashes. It's weird, but it's cool. Like, you know what I mean?
Which, when you're a kid, is like, oh my God, you can do that?
Right. And I mean, there has been an absence of that in WWE for so long that it's like, it's good to see it back, even as an adult.
Yeah. I can
It's
imagine.
refreshing. But yeah, I'm excited. Like, as much as I don't like the build-up to WrestleMania and stuff this year, it's still WrestleMania. I still love it. I'm still going to watch it. You're listening to the Unspoken Podcast, part of the Undetermined Podcast Network. Nick, let's end this. Let's do a double hot take.
Yes, indeed. But before we get into the hot take goodness, I'd like to give a special shout out to
Go ahead.
the Jets beat reporter who visited our class today. We visited our class on Tuesday, and that's Rich Cimini. So he is the Jets beat reporter for ESPN.com, and he couldn't have been nicer, more forthcoming, or more helpful to us young, impressionable, know-nothing journalists. So if you're listening, Rich, you're the best.
Yeah, Rich, that was a cool talk. Really, really cool talk. And I feel a little more, like I can't wait. I want to be in this industry.
I feel like I know more. I mean, I don't feel smarter. I'll never feel smarter. I'll always be a dumbass, but at least I can say people have attempted to teach me.
Yeah. Anyways, are you ready for the double hot take?
Yes, indeedy.
Okay. So I will start this one off because you're, the more hot take person than me. But Mr. Goodell is ruining the NFL once again. There have been a couple of rule changes. I mean, some of them, I guess, are meh. But he has decided to ban jumping over the defense and offense when it comes to field goals and such. So, the person on the defense can't dive over all the players in an attempt to swat the ball down or grab it and hold it, and get it, re-get the possession for their team.
So ostensibly,
I explain that as best as I can.
yeah, I know
Okay.
You can only explain it as best you can because the only person who understands the full reasoning as to why they integrated this. If you find that person, surprise, you're talking to empty space because he does not exist. Ostensibly, this rule was integrated to cut down on injuries, but that's like I want to cut down on leg injuries. I want to cut down on leg injuries, so I'm banning people from wearing do-rags in the stands. It's a completely the problem exists, but this is not going
out of left field.
God
Completely
damn!
out of
Every fucking time with this guy.
I thought it was
Every
bad
time.
when he banned touchdown celebrations. Now it's even more ridiculous.
And you know what? I think the Players Association and the people under him, at least in the PR office in the NFL,
They're doing this.
They're going to strain more and more and more to try and explain these fucking rule changes.
They're you see what I have? Like they're face palming. That's what they're doing.
Exactly. But and let me backtrack a second here. I am not under any circumstances a person who believes that football is sacred. I'm not that person.
Neither am I. I'm a bigger baseball fan and a bigger hockey fan than football.
But football has changed so much in the times that my father's been watching it and I've been watching it. And you know what? Football can be whatever. But if you're making these changes to make a less watchable product and a less enjoyable product, then what the fuck is the point of making changes?
I have asked for Roger Goodell to resign ever since the Ray Rice situation, and my opinion on that has not changed. I'm still waiting for the time for him to resign.
You can shout into the wind all you want, but he is pretty much like the Rocky Mountains at this point. Ain't going nowhere.
I guess not. It's freaking ridiculous. I mean, like I said,
because even with the Raiders moving to Las Vegas finally. Officially.
Oh God! We need to talk about that.
No.
My God.
But that's part of it. That's part of the rant because you have to understand something. This just seems to me, these rule changes and stadium changes, location changes, to be honest, are just in the business of enriching richer people. It's basically, you have no idea how much money Jerry Jones is going to make from through Legends Hospitality, which he owns, with the Raiders now being in Vegas. It's deplorable. It's not only a ridiculous amount of money, it's not only an absurd amount of money, it is a sacrilegious amount of money.
I mean, I know it's not much of a conflict of interest, but can you say conflict of interest?
Oh, you can say it in any kind of language you want, but they will not listen.
I mean, I give some praise to I think it was Miami's owner, right, who had the one dissenting vote.
Yes, Steve.
I praise him. I praise him for actually doing that. I mean, I get it. Here's the thing. I get sports in Vegas. I'm all for the idea. I was all for the what's it called? The Golden Knights, the hockey team that's going to start up.
Yeah.
In the fall. I'm all for that. And I mean, I would be all for a football team in Vegas. I just, Oakland, I don't see it. And I mean, it sucks because they just had a winning season. And now after what? They only have like 2 more years maybe at most in Oakland, and then they're going to be in Vegas.
And they don't have a team. They finally have a team worth watching, and this happens? I got a feel for Oakland fans. I really do. And you know what? The city of Oakland will still be on. They'll still owe them something like $700 million to pay off the debts from the stadium they're in right now.
And I mean, I don't blame it when like they interviewed one of those super fan people. He had like the stink face paint and everything, and he said, "I'm done." I don't blame him.
I don't blame him. No, you're right. I do not blame him at all. It just seems to get to the point where I just don't know how much more the NFL can get away with before people just start going, nope, done. Fine.
Speaking, by the way, of stadiums, this weekend the Yankees and Braves are actually playing in the first ever game at the Braves' new stadium. I mean, but here's the thing about that. Turner Field was only like 20 years old, and they moved out of it.
Exactly.
This is getting ridiculous. I mean, we've talked about before how much stadiums have changed in an early episode. But I mean, this is freaking taxpayer money going to all these stadiums.
Exactly. Because I guess, fuck schools, fuck education of any kind, fuck public works, fuck fire departments.
I mean,
what we really want is baseball.
I mean, if a stadium is in need of repair, that's one thing. But Turner Field was only 20. I mean, this is baseball, of course. We're moving on from football, but still, Turner Field was only 20 years old. I don't think in 20 years, there could be as much damage or need repairs or need to expand or you get what I mean?
Yes.
That was in the late 1990s where they moved. It was 1997 when they first played in Turner Field.
And it's not Cobb County where the stadium is not actually in Atlanta. And the traffic, the kind of traffic that they're going, the problems that they're going to have, it's gonna be unreal, fucking unreal. So you're right.
Anyway, let's get back to the NFL.
Yeah, let's not pretend that this is strictly an NFL issue because it's endemic of all sports.
But I like to think Roger Goodell is the most guilty of all of them.
He is the most visible target because he's made the most public mistakes with lest we forget Ray Rice.
Let's right, there was that, and I just like that. But on the stadium issue, I think I also mentioned weeks ago, I think this Los Angeles experiment is going to be a failure once again. Like, I like the stadium, and I like to think it will succeed, but I'll have a lot of doubts.
God help us. You know what?
Once again, why? Like, if the Raiders were moving anywhere, why not move back to Los Angeles, where because the Rams and Raiders actually have history in Los Angeles,
and a lot of the Raiders fan base is still in Los Angeles.
Right. So, I mean, if anything, why not the Chargers? But even then, I don't know. Why don't you? I don't know. Haven't you ever thought of an expansion team like, I don't know, the NHL is doing?
Yeah, well, but it's emblematic of the problems that exist in American professional sports, where it's not just about competitive spirit or even, the capitalistic gains of athletes from performing well, which is fine, but it's enriching yourselves on the backs of the people whom you claim to be working towards delivering an entertaining product. You're supposed to be serving the fans, and this is not how you serve the fans.
It's not. But at this point, I don't think anybody can win.
No, it's there's too much money, too much entrenched power to ever amount an effective defense other than, not watching. And you know what? We're just as guilty for partaking in it. But you know what? You do what you can and you call bullshit where you see it.
Right.
That's all you can do.
And I'm going to call bullshit on this. And, I mean, let's go back to our original point with the, jumping rule and such. I mean, it's like some of the best plays came from that, where somebody dove over and stopped the football, stopped the field goal. I mean, there's still always the jump, the classic jump, but really that's even rarer than the freaking dive. And I mean, like I said, I think I told you earlier in this week, and I told somebody else earlier this week, at this point, you might as well just have the touchdown count for 7 points. Because even ever since they moved the field goal back for this past season, I mean, the extra point, not just the field, I meant the extra point, but it's like, there's been a few more misses, and there was that 1 week where everybody missed, and it was incredible. But it's like, still, it's very rare for it to happen. At this point, you might as well just have the touchdown be 7 points, and after the touchdown, let's get into kickoff.
That's what they want. That's what they want.
That's going to be what they want, and it's disgusting. It's honestly disgusting. So sorry to end on a sour note, but that is going to do it for the Unspoken Podcast for this week. Nick, any last final thoughts before we head off?
Well, these rule changes and stadium thing is really bringing up my blood pressure. I got to stop ranting for a while.
Yeah, well, you know what? We're done for the week, so you can now have a week off before resuming any ranting. So, once again, that is going to do it for us here at the Unspoken Podcast, part of the Undetermined Podcast Network. Go like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at the UDUP. And follow all the rest of the Undetermined Podcast Network Facebook and Twitter accounts and listen to their shows. And
next week we're going to be crowning a national champion basketball, and we're going to get further into baseball. That's right.
Yeah, we're actually going to have games to talk about, storylines to talk about.
Exactly. It's going to be good, unless something insane happens in the NFL, which is really at this
always
point
a possibility.
Nothing. Yeah. At this point, nothing surprises me.
So, I'm Tom Albano, and for Nick Videra and everybody else at the Unspoken Podcast and the Undetermined Podcast Network, thank you for listening in to episode number 14 of the Unspoken Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Good night, everybody.